There's a piece of security footage from Columbus, Ohio, that investigators have watched thousands of times. It shows a bar's second-floor entrance at the top of an escalator. At 1:55 in the morning, a young man in a white t-shirt stands there, chatting with two women. He says goodnight. He turns. He walks back toward the music. The bar closes half an hour later. The crowd pours down the escalator, into the street, into taxis, into the rest of their lives. He isn't in it. He never came back down. His name is Brian Shaffer. He was a medical student, 3 days from a beach vacation, and for 20 years, every camera, every search, and every tip has failed to answer a question that should be impossible to ask. How does a man vanish from the second floor of a crowded building? This is never found, where the record ends and the questions begin. By the end of this file, you'll know the whole night, frame by frame, and the phone call, months later, that changed everything for the people who loved him. Spring 2006. Brian Shaffer is 27, a second-year med student at Ohio State, easygoing, well-liked, and completely devoted to one band, Pearl Jam. He has a girlfriend, Alexis, a father, Randy, a younger brother, Derek, and a wound that is 3 weeks old. His mother, Renee, has just died of cancer. Friends would later tell police the loss hit him hard, but that he didn't seem depressed, and he was moving forward. He was back in classes, and that Monday, he and Alexis were flying to Miami. A break. Sun. Something good. He just had to get through spring break's opening weekend first. Friday, March 31st. Brian has dinner with his dad at a steakhouse. An ordinary evening. Father and son. Afterward, he meets up with a friend, his former roommate, and they head to the campus entertainment district. First stop, just before 10 p.m., a second-floor bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. The escalator camera records Brian riding up, relaxed, normal. They bar hop for a few hours, other spots, other crowds, and around 1:15 a.m., a friend of the group drives them back to the Ugly Tuna for one last round. The camera catches Brian on the escalator again, heading up into the noise. Inside, at some point, Brian and his friends get separated. It's a packed bar on the first night of spring break. Nobody thinks anything of it. 1:55 a.m. The entrance camera records Brian one final time, standing outside the bar's doors at the top of the escalator, chatting pleasantly with two women he's met that night. A few minutes of small talk. Then he turns and walks back toward the bar, out of the camera's frame. That is the last confirmed image of Brian Shaffer in existence. When the bar closes around 2, his friends wait for him at the bottom of the escalator. He doesn't come down. They call his phone. Nothing. It's late. People scatter. They assume Brian caught a ride or walked home. Annoying. Maybe. Not alarming. Saturday passes. Sunday passes. His calls go unanswered, but it's spring break. Then Monday comes, and Brian doesn't show up for the flight to Miami. Not for Alexis. Not for the trip they'd planned. That is the moment everyone knows. His father calls the police. And when detectives pull the security footage from that building, the case stops being a missing person report and becomes a puzzle that 2 decades of police work has never solved. Detectives painstakingly watched every frame from that escalator camera. Every patron, every frame. Brian is not among them. They considered everything. That he'd changed clothes, that he'd left in disguise, that the cameras had gaps. One of the original investigators later said that after an exhaustive review, he could state with 100% certainty Brian did not leave on that escalator, which leaves exactly one other way out. A service door near the kitchen. It wasn't covered by cameras, and it opened onto an active construction site. Dark, torn ground, debris, fencing. If Brian left that way, he left into a maze in the dark. The site was searched. The surrounding blocks were searched. Miles beyond, in every direction, searched. No phone, no wallet ever recovered. No shoe, no jacket, no trace. A man walks into a bar, and as far as the physical record of this world is concerned, never comes out. Now, everyone fixates on the footage, but the strangest evidence in this case isn't on the tape at all. It's what happened to Brian's phone 5 months later. After Brian vanished, Alexis did something both heartbreaking and methodical. Every night before bed, she called his phone. Every night, the same result. Straight to voicemail. A dead phone, a closed door. Night after night, for months. Then, one night in September 2006, she called. It rang 3 times. Not voicemail. Ringing. A phone that had been silent for 5 months was, for a moment, on. Somewhere, powered, connected to a network, and then it was gone again. Was it the phone itself, briefly revived? A network glitch? Someone else with his SIM card? Investigators could never establish which. In recent years, claims have surfaced, unverified, that his phone had pinged around Columbus for some time after the disappearance. What's certain is only this. Months after Brian Shaffer walked out of frame, something connected to him briefly touched the world again. The people who saw Brian that night were asked to take polygraphs. His father passed. The friend who drove them passed. Others passed. One member of the group declined, and that refusal has fueled online speculation for 20 years. So let's be careful here, because care is owed. Refusing a polygraph is legal. Polygraphs are notoriously unreliable, and in 2 decades, police have never named a suspect in this case. Suspicion is not evidence. A file this famous collects theories the way it collects dust. The searches went everywhere the theories went. Brian's father and brother spent weekends in waders, walking the river near campus. A rock star got involved. Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder, Brian's hero, appealed for tips from a concert stage. Reported sightings came in from Michigan, Texas, even Sweden. None confirmed. In 2021, investigators released an age-progressed image of Brian at 42. 20 years on, tips still arrive, and Columbus police still take every call. And through all of it, the record has not moved 1 frame past 1:55 a.m. This case took more than Brian. His father, Randy, who reported him missing, who searched rivers for him, who lobbied Ohio's legislature to change how missing adult cases are handled, died in 2008, struck by a falling tree in a storm. He never got an answer. Brian's mother had died 3 weeks before he vanished. In the span of 30 months, Derek Shaffer lost his mother, his brother, and his father. And only one of those losses came with a grave. Derek still hopes. 20 years later, his family's statement is 1 sentence long. We can't believe it's been this long, and we wish anyone who knows anything would come forward. The theories, stated neutrally: 1. The service door and an accident. Brian, after a long night, leaves through the one unwatched exit into a dark construction site, and something goes wrong there or beyond it. It explains the footage perfectly. It struggles with the searches. No trace was ever found there or anywhere. 2. He walked away. Weeks earlier, grieving, Brian had reportedly talked about escaping. A tropical place, music, a different life. He'd even asked Alexis to run away with him. Friends told police he didn't seem depressed or suicidal. But grief is not always visible. It explains the missing body. It struggles with everything else. His bank accounts were never touched, his phone went dark, and he loved the people he'd have been leaving. 3. Someone else was involved. In the crowd, or outside that service door, a random attack or someone known to him. It would explain the silence and the absence. In 20 years, it has produced tips, speculation, and names whispered online, but no suspect, no charges, and no proof. 3 doors, every one of them open, and after 20 years, not one of them has given up an answer. So here is the file as it exists. Known: a man rode an escalator up at 1:15, spoke to 2 women at 1:55, and turned back toward the music. His phone rang 3 times, once, 5 months later. Unknown whether Brian Shaffer ever left that building at all, and if he did, through which door and with whom. So I'll leave it with you. The service exit, the walkaway, or something darker, and that phone ringing in September. Glitch or ghost? Tell me below. The search has ended. The questions didn't. 20 years on, Brian Shaffer remains exactly what he became at 1:55 that morning. Never found. If you haven't seen the file on the man who ran from an airport and vanished the same strange way, mid-frame, mid-stride, it's on screen now. Until then, stay curious and stay safe.